Hey everyone, welcome back to Spector Creative. I'm your host, me, Scott Toy Guru Neitlich, and we talk toys, we talk movies, pop culture, occasionally hieroglyphics and history. Thank you for joining us. We are so glad to have you here today. It's such a positive day, and let's talk some fun stuff. Topic today I want to go in was suggested by a subscriber in the comments section. Why is it that all of these superhero movies have to have such tight continuity? It's an interesting thought. So one of the big payoffs, right, for something like Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame was the payoff of years of storytelling, right? I mean, when Captain America picks up Thor's hammer in um, Endgame, sorry, spoiler alert for a 10-year-old movie. That was a huge payoff. We first learned that only Thor could pick up his hammer back in Thor 1, and that was reinforced in Age of Ultron. Even the little joke that Cap might have actually picked it up for a second when the handle wobbles. So you had setup, payoff, right? And that's great. That's absolutely one awesome way of making movies. Of course, it requires fans to have watched all of the movies. And that's kind of the issue we're coming up to with the new Avengers movies, Doomsday and Secret Wars, that are going to be paying off phase 4 or 5 and 6, or maybe they are starting phase 6, but they're paying off 4 and 5. And the problem is that 4 and 5 have not done what phase 1 and 2 did for the Marvel Universe. She-Hulk and Moon Knight and Echo and the Marvels and Captain America Brave New World, even Thunderbolts. These movies are not performing the way Iron Man and Captain America movies performed and Doctor Strange leading up to the end of Phase 3, the Endgame and the Thanos Infinity War arc, the Infinity Stone arc, etc. Okay, so we're now going into the end of Phase 6 that is supposed to pay off all of this continuity that nobody's been watching. I mean, the audience level has just dropped so significantly, and it's hard for us to see it, us meaning collectors and fellow toy and comic nerds, because we're immersed in all of this stuff, right, constantly. And the idea that most of pop culture, most of America, is not obsessed over every little detail shown in the new Fantastic Four trailer is almost something doesn't even register on our radar. We don't even think about that. It's like, no, of course everyone cares about this stuff. Yeah, no, they really, really don't. It's a very small percentage of the country that even goes to movies. If you do the actual math to see like how many people it takes to make $100,000 when tickets are $17 a pop, you run the numbers and you realize that it's a very small niche group. And when you have a fan base like a Star Wars or a Marvel or a Star Trek or anything like that, you're counting on those fans coming to score that opening weekend, but then you've got to get the rest of, the masses of pop culture to fill in weekends 2, 3, 4, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason I'm bringing this up, within the context that for Superman Doomsday, you have way fewer people who now are knowledgeable about the intricacies of, say, how She-Hulk's powers work, or what happened on Daredevil Born Again, or any of this stuff, whether or not the movie will reference it. The payoffs, the emotional payoffs we had, like with the Tony Stark character and Steve Rogers interacting, Tony meeting his father, in the 70s in Endgame. Again, sorry, spoiler alert for 10-year-old movie. That was a big payoff because you can really see how Tony's relationship with his father and his acceptance of being a hero kind of becomes his hero's journey that started with Iron Man 1 in 2009 and ended with Endgame. We're not really getting that. Whose journey have we been following? And on top of that, why do superhero movies, going back to the first point, have to have tight continuity? Let me explain how this has worked so well. Look at James Bond. Look at Indiana Jones, right? Yeah, sometimes you get like some nods to the previous movie, like in Last Crusade, noting the Ark of the Covenant in the tunnels under Venice, or the inscription. Like, yeah, that's the Ark of the Covenant. I sure know that one. Other than like little gags like that, you really don't need to have seen a previous Indiana Jones movie to enjoy a new one. Well, to enjoy a new one, meaning probably the ones that were actually good. But yeah, like even Dial of Destiny did not really rely on you having seen Raiders and Last Crusade and Temple of Doom and even Crystal Skull. You could just walk right in. Same thing with James Bond. Occasionally there's other references, or like, Q might say something referencing a device he gave him earlier. But for the most part, each James Bond movie is a standalone film. You just have your hero, he goes on an adventure, you're done. Brainless, leave your, popcorn movie. Leave your brain at the door, enjoy your popcorn, boom. So why can't we have Spider-Man movies like this? Or Iron Man movies like this, where Iron Man just does something and really the continuity, or really the motivator, is just stopping the bad guy and finding that MacGuffin. Why is it that in all these movies we have to have like these really complicated, or rather, it's almost, I don't want to call them tacked on, but love stories, or more so personal growth, right? The idea that Tony Stark is not the same guy he was at the beginning of the movie, but Indiana Jones is the same guy he was at the beginning of Raiders that he is at the end. Yeah, I mean, he worked some stuff out with his dad at the end of Last Crusade, but he doesn't really have a huge character arc. And that's okay, because when you're dealing with fun popcorn movies, go back to the Flash Gordon films that inspired George Lucas in the 20s, all of those serials. There was no character development. Character development, to me, is for films. The whole joke that guys like movies where lots of people die quickly and women like movies where one person dies slowly. Those are the kind of movies that work well with character development. When you have an action-adventure film with a heroic character, why can't they just have an adventure? Again, like James Bond, like Indiana Jones. Why can't they just go do something? Like Zorro. Here's actually a great example. So the original Zorro books, let alone the Disney TV series and the movies, not only do they really not reference each other, with the books, the author actually didn't think anyone would have read any of the previous stories. So every time he wrote a new Zorro story, and he wrote like 50, they're basically the exact same story, more or less. And they almost never reference anything that happened previously. Now, obviously, we like continuity, the super fans, but the super fans are such a small portion of the pie. It's a much larger audience that would just go in and have an awesome, fun movie. So all of these references and Easter eggs and continuity is there for the fans, but the fans aren't the ones that are bringing it to $1 billion. The fans get it to its $100 million mark on opening weekend, but it's mainstream audiences that push it to become a cultural hit. And by stripping away literally character development, love interests, and continuity, you're left with a storyline that's just about a hero accomplishing a goal. And that's what the old pulps did. That's what the old serials did. And I'd love to see that come back even stronger. I'd love to see, Batman be like that. I'd love to see, heck, how cool would it be in Star Wars just to have, characters going on adventures? Does there have to always be this giant consequence? Can't they just find the Shakara stones and, kiss the girl at the end? Is that so bad? I don't think so. What do you guys think? Let me know. Storytelling is a huge, I guess I'm a big fan of it. And I love understanding the way story structures, the way people relate to them. If you enjoyed this video, please do share it with others. It's the best way to support this channel. And speaking of stories, check out my book, The Nile Quest, available on Amazon now. If you love adventure stories, this is an awesome summer pool read. All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sharing your time today, and I'll see you in the next video.